Hey, impressive chessers! Today we're revisiting an important topic: how to stop blundering, the cause of almost every decisive result, especially at the club level. To illustrate my philosophy on how to limit blunders and passive play at the same time, we'll be going over my favorite over the board game. My opponent in this game is a strong FIDE master, FM, which further goes to show that if you follow my philosophy of trying to see opponents' threats but don't immediately resign yourself to passive defense, you can take down title players and also limit your blunders at the same time. All right, guys, we're going to get a little bit into this, but now is a good time to go over to my chess.com blog to try out these puzzles yourselves before they get ruined. All right, let's get to the moves. All right, right here, white is, hopefully you guys all saw that white is obviously threatening. Pawn takes knight. So don't play something silly like totally missing their threat and letting them just take your knight, with a pretty sizable advantage for white in that case. But at the same time, you don't want to resign yourself to passive play like we talked about with a move like knight to a7, which actually strangely is worse than just hanging it completely, which is kind of crazy. In this case, white could play a move like a4 to guard their pawn. Bishop d4 would have also been good. Could further go here, and white is taking over the board, taking over the center, really taking over the game. So this is not what black wants as well. So before we get to what black should play, let's go back to the beginning of this game. All right, so this game starts out with e4. And whenever white plays e4, I'm almost playing my favorite counterattacking defense, the French defense. Let's go through some moves. White's playing the advanced variation. Black is counterattacking that center, trying to take down the base of the pawn chain. And here we go. We got this position right here. I'm going to go through some moves pretty quickly. This is all theoretical moves up until white makes the first mistake, giving black a slight advantage if they play the right move. I decided to castle. They also castled. And a5. This move took me 55 minutes to play in a game where I had 90 minutes but 30-second increments. So that did give me some time to survive after this. Honestly, 55 minutes is probably a little too long to play, even though this was very complicated. I should have just at some point trusted myself or decided to play another move. But a5 was the best move, and I'm glad I figured it out, and it helped me win this game. All right, we're in this situation right here. And again, this is really your last chance to go to the chess.com blog and try out the puzzles yourselves. Here we go. So hopefully you guys saw that black can play the brilliant semi-piece sacrifice pawn to a4. Knowing that they will take the knight, we can't or shouldn't take that knight because they would take another piece and we would only get one piece for the price of one. Also, we actually only have one good move here, but it is pretty good for black, as you can see from the evaluation bar. It is to take with the pawn. All right, so this pawn is going forward, but also, even more importantly, if black was to take it with the bishop, this is what could have happened, and this rook coming over here is going to be bad news for black. There's actually not a good way to save this queen. Check out these bishops just shooting lasers down the board. Now let's contrast this with me taking it with the pawn, and let's say white had played this, which actually is their best move still. And we follow the last line. The queen comes over here. Now this rook coming over here is not going to be as big of a deal. It is a big deal right now, but we see the threat. That's how my philosophy that we're talking about. We need to see our opponent's threats and be able to meet them with an efficient and productive move for ourselves if we want to be playing good chess. So a good move here is to hightail it out of here. And now we can go queen to c8 or queen to c7. I kind of like queen to c8 a little bit better to not have to deal with this stuff. So yeah, let's say queen to c8, and black actually has a very nice position with c5 and c4 and d4. These two connected pass pawns are very powerful. All right, so this is not what happened. Luckily for me, because that would have been a good advantage, but the game actually went a lot more pleasantly for me. Because white played bishop takes h7, which is tricky, but ultimately not a good move, actually. So I take. And in the game, they went queen to c2 check to guard their bishop, which was getting hit through the knight, which is something called a pin. That knight is pinned to the bishop. Now it is no longer pinned. I was actually a lot more worried about queen to d3 check when this could have happened. Although now looking back on it, I realize I should not have spent so much time on that a5 move. I was calculating out these lines when I had a perfectly good backup option with pawn to c5, reinforcing my pawn on e6, getting those two pawns rolling down the board, and next move I can just take that bishop easily and cleanly. All right, but I was calculating out whether my queen was going to get trapped if I take this piece here. Very important. I am up a piece right now, actually, because don't forget they sacrificed their bishop on h7 before this happened. So now they go here, seemingly trapping my queen. All right, so you'll notice that when I went queen takes b2 right here, there's no annotation. So if my queen was going to get trapped, I would probably put a double question mark on that. So there has to be some way out of this. And obviously the evaluation bar would not be this high for black. All right, guys, hopefully you said knight takes e5. Brilliant move, hitting that queen. So if they take our queen, we just simply take their queen. Everything is good. We're up 4 points. And we're not losing it. Well, we did lose our queen, but we got their queen as well. All right. The only kind of scary move is the knight could take our knight, renewing the threat on our queen. But that was the point. It deflected the knight away from blocking the rook on f8's guard of that f2 square and pawn. So the king would have to move, and in the game, I was actually intending to play here, which intends if they blunder by taking that bishop right there, they get in-your-face checkmated, which, so bishop d6 is a fairly good move. It turns out that rook f4 counterattacking their knight to counter their attack on my bishop is even stronger, and the game could have continued like this. And now this is going to be an unstoppable checkmating attack. Oops, sorry. So they could check me one more time. They could actually throw in some more checks if they want, but nothing good is going to come from those checks. And now there's a ton of checkmates. Oops. There's actually rook h2 as well. Any one of those checkmates would be fine, obviously, and black would go on to win the game. All right, so that is not what happened. Let's go back in time here. All right, so in the real game, queen went to c2. Knight comes back, and the queen, like I said, is guarding the bishop on b2. And here come my connected passed c and d pawns. So this is why, even though the material is even here, black is having a huge advantage, actually, as the evaluation bar shows. All right, so he comes over here to think about unleashing some kind of bishop move with a discovered attack on my queen. So I said, you know what? I'm going to use that against you, actually. Wherever your bishop moves, you will lose your rook. So this would be a huge blunder. That would just throw away their rook for no reason. All right, so that is not what they did. I said my opponent was an FM. They're not going to fall for that. And they put their knight onto d3. But that opened up a spot for my queen. And what I was really hoping for was that they were going to trade queens, thinking that releases the pressure on their position and no more pin. But I do have an attack on their knight, so they need to guard their knight, which they could do like this. And then, voila, the pin is back. And there's plenty of ways to win, but this is the coolest. Put pressure on that absolutely pinned knight. By the way, should not take the bishop right here. That would be no good, because they would use their own pin against me. And now white's back in business. So we should do this, and now the position is pretty bleak for white. They can take the bishop, but then, boom, simplify to winify. So black is up 3 points here. Let's get rid of all the pieces. Help our big pieces are going to shepherd a pawn down the board, and we'll just simply and easily win the game. They could have also taken my rook here with knight takes b3, but then my bishop, though, is being attacked, saves itself and takes back, and now black is just up 4 points for not very much compensation at all, actually. And black should go on to win the game. All right, so white again saw this and said, nope, we're not trading queens. Now they can possibly think about moving their bishop, because I could take their rook, but I would get 2 rooks for a queen, which is a pretty dicey situation. Not something I wanted to do. I wanted to keep this simple and sweet for black. All right. So now we're setting up a pin that we're preemptively putting pressure on. That knight on d3 is in big trouble, so they guard it. And now the last puzzle in the blog was, should black play pawn to c4? What's white's like most aggressive threat that they can do after c4, and does black have a counter to it? So there's, as you can see from the score, there's plenty of good moves here. I decided to play c4 because I saw that their most pressing move, most aggressive and threatening move, was knight to c1, which seemingly traps my queen, actually. Look at that. So the knight's cutting that off. It's hitting my queen, and my queen has no safe squares to go to. But hopefully you guys saw a counter to this before playing c4. If you didn't, well, hopefully you can find it later. But if you play like that, you're playing with fire. You should really see the critical moves before they happen. Don't just hope you get lucky later, because that's not a long-term winning strategy. All right, in this case, pawn to c3. Woo! Hits their queen, so they can take my queen if they want, but everything in their camp is getting attacked. I got the queen back. This is not good for white. So, again, they played a sneaky move. They got out of my attack from my bishop on their queen, and they are still attacking my queen. So now I knew I was doing pretty well. I wanted to find the simplest and easiest way to try to wrap up this position. And I think I found the simplest move. Let's go over a move that I would not recommend, even though in this case it does work, which is queen takes the bishop. So the reason this works is we'll take right there. they need to move their knight because otherwise we're just going to push by and get a new queen. So maybe a move like this, and then boom. We can put our bishop right here. Everything to try to get that queen back. And now, actually, if this rook wants to stay on the last row, stopping that queen from, or that pawn from advancing, turning into a queen, effectively, it has nowhere safe to go. And so black does have a big advantage here, but when you have a big advantage, it's really better to try to play as simply as you can. That way you won't mess up as often, at least. When you make it simple, then it's easier to play the right moves or good moves. It's actually really good to have more than one good move. That way, if you pick one, you have more choices to pick right. All right, so the actual move I played was queen to c2. Gets out of the knight's attack and hits their rook. And now the rest of the game was fairly simple. I just take the rook. They take theirs, so now I'm up a rook for a pawn, so 4 points. But they do have a kind of dangerous attack on this pawn. So what's a simple move to guard that pawn? Hopefully you guys said queen to g6. Just gets the queen out of any knight discovered attack, guards the pawn, and everything is guarded. Total simple chess. Black should go on to win. And in fact, this is where my opponent decided to throw in the towel and resign the game. To be honest, if I was white, I might try some, you might as well try your crazy attacks, because if you're not doing well, then it's nothing to lose. But I could also see why my opponent resigned here. So the things to learn from this are simple chess when you're winning. Try not to play too passively when you're getting threatened. Definitely make sure that you are seeing that you're getting threatened. You don't want to have them attack your queen or something and you don't even notice, and then they take your queen and, of course, win the game. But you also don't want to play so passively in response that you start to let them get a huge advantage just because you were scared of their threats. All right, guys. Hopefully this will help you to play impressive chess in the future. Ta-ta for now. Thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and if you can, share with a friend.